Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 10 winners of my top 10 shows of the year. So, that doesn't make any sense. Let me explain. So, since I started this channel, every year, well, starting in 2015, even though I started my channel in 2014, I didn't start doing this until 2015. Every year, I would release a top 10 list of my favorite shows that year, and I have a rule where the show had to finish that year because I need to see it, even though technically the years of the show, the year that the show came out, doesn't matter. I can't include it on my list if I hadn't seen the whole freaking thing. So, but I took all the shows that finished that year and make a top 10 list of my, favorite shows and put my number one of the one I really loved that year. Now, since I have done exactly 10 of these so far, because it is 2025, in which the year that I'm recording this, I thought, well, hey, why don't I make a top 10 out of the top 10, out of the winners of each year that won my top 10 list. Now, there's going to be a very important stipulation to this, because I love to make up my own rules when it comes to top 10s like this. And the important stipulation is, if a show has won multiple years, it can only be counted once. I don't want to count like 5 seasons of the same show. That's not any fun. I like to have a little bit of variety on my list. So, if there is a show, and there is, which I'll get to, there's 2 of them, but I'll get to that shortly, that has multiple entries on this list, then I will choose a season to be the winner. And any other year in which that show won, and it's not the season I selected, then I will then revert to the number 2 of that year, my number 2 on that list. And that will be considered, for the purposes of this video, the winner. So, there are 2 shows that won multiple years. Game of Thrones won twice when I was first starting this, obviously. And The Expanse won 4 times. I really love The Expanse. You should really know that by now. I mean, I tried to make it the center of my channel, but I just didn't have that much to say about specific topics, and it never caught on. My videos for that never really caught on, so my channel became more about Star Trek and Game of Thrones. But The Expanse is perhaps my favorite show of all time. So, yeah, won 4 times. It won for season 2, for season 4, so for season 5, and for season 6. Which most people would do different seasons, but those were my particular favorite seasons of The Expanse. So, in both cases, I chose one season to count, to be on this list, to be the best season of that show. So for Game of Thrones, it won, season 5 won, and season 6 won. And that choice is very easy, season 6. Went with season 6 with Game of Thrones, so season 5 is that year is going to revert to my number 2. The Expanse, this was a harder choice because I was really torn between season 2 and 6, because they're both amazing. At one point or another, I said was the best season of the show. But ultimately, I did decide to go with season 2, because I just watched that recently and I saw how fucking awesome it is, for one. And for another thing, I liked the second place of that the year season 6 came out better than the second place of the year season 2 came out. I know that's kind of finagling a bit, but season 2 would kind of sort of maybe edge it out anyway. So this is going to be the 10 entries of the winners, and I still call them winners even though it's number 2 sometimes, but still winners of my top 10s of all of the years. So 2015, My number 1 was Game of Thrones Season 5, and as I said, I am not counting that. So I'm reverting to the number 2, which is The Leftovers Season 2. And to be fair, in retrospect, I think the Season 2 of The Leftovers is way better than Game of Thrones Season 5. And if I were doing that again, that would easily be my number 1, way ahead of Game of Thrones Season 5. But, I'm not going to retroactively change what I already did, even if I don't agree with it now. But since Game of Thrones had more than 1 year, then it gets pushed out, and The Leftovers Season 2 takes its rightful place as the best show of 2015. So next we'll get to 2016, which is Game of Thrones Season 6, which, as I said, I will accept that as the entry for Game of Thrones. 2017 is The Expanse Season 2, and as I said, I will accept that as the entry for The Expanse. 2018 is the Netflix limited series Maniac. 2019 was The Expanse Season 4, and that is being disregarded because I chose Season 2. So number 2 that year of 2019 was The Watchmen limited series. I'm not sure if I'd still pick that because Chernobyl was number 3. In retrospect, I'd probably pick Chernobyl over The Watchmen. But again, I can't change what I already did. I had to go with what I chose, so it's going to be The Watchmen. 2020 was Westworld Season 3. Hey! I don't care what anyone says, that season's amazing. And 2021 was The Expanse Season 5, which again, shoving that aside, so my number 2 was Dopesick, the Hulu limited series. So I'm going with that. And by the way, the reason why The Expanse didn't win 2020 is because it didn't have a show that finished in 2020. So that's why. Anyway, 2022 was The Expanse Season 6. And as I said, very close call, but decided to give way to an equally valuable that would have been my number 1 for pretty much any other year. And that is Better Call Saul Season 6. Absolutely deserves to be a winner, and I was very sad I had to make it number 2, but as I said, Expanse Season 6 is one of my favorite seasons of all time. So, but Better Call Saul Season 6, up there. So 2023 was now The Expanse is over. We don't have to worry about that. But 2023 was Loki Season 2. And 2024, 2 Marvel shows in a year, Agatha All Along. And I'm not daring to call it Season 1, but never know, it could be. So so those are my 10 that I am going to rank in order from my least favorite to favorite winners. So let's get started. Let's get this party started here with my top 10 winners of my top 10 shows of the year. And we'll start with my number 10, which is the 2019 entry, The Watchmen. Not too surprising because I just said I would probably put Chernobyl ahead of this. I do like this show a lot. I was very interested week to week. It had me hooked. There was tons of mysteries, and I thought a lot of them did pay off in good ways. They had a lot of good characters. And I didn't think I'd like this show because I am not a particular fan of DC in general, and I never liked The Watchmen. I don't like that Zack Snyder movie. And I always thought this is overrated, but Damon Lindelof did it, and he did a really amazing job. And there was a lot of very poignant, powerful social commentary thrown in there, particularly when it comes to race relations. And they did something interesting with the concept of The Watchmen. But it did have that pretentious ending, which I didn't like. I kind of ended at a sort of, and they were trying to be like, oh, this is so cool that it's ambiguous and you don't know. But Yeah, I don't like that. I didn't like that. I'm not a fan of that. I really wish there would have been a season 2 to explain that ending, but Damon Lindelof is like, oh, there shouldn't be a season 2 because that's the ending I wanted. Yeah, it's pretentious. And there was other pretentious shit throughout the show, like the whole lube man, which was really like, what the fuck is that? He just throws in weird shit just to be pretentious. So, but I still loved it, don't get me wrong. It was still amazing, but yeah, that's why compared to other amazing shows, doesn't quite stack up, so it's my number 10. So next we'll get to my number 9, which is Dopesick, the Hulu entry. This was, what year was this again? 2021. I'm just looking at this list here, and yeah, I do believe that this is, well, other than Better Call Saul, this is the only non-sci-fi, non-fantasy show on my list. But it is the only based off a true story list entry on the list. But yeah, just this and Better Call Saul, the only two non-sci-fi, non-fantasy. Because, yeah, I do consider the Watchmen fantasy. I mean, that's a comic book thing. So, yeah. And, yeah, I do love it. I thought it was very poignant, very powerful. I was absolutely hooked. I would recommend the show to anyone who hadn't seen it. It was about the opioid crisis in the 90s. And Michael Keaton's fucking amazing. The production value is amazing. Unlike some people, I love the fact that it was non-linear storytelling. I think that was definitely a highlight of it, and I love the way, I think it was brilliant in the way that the story discerned that they had, because they had like stories taking place in different years and different timelines, but the way that all come together to tell a coherent story that worked in tangent with one another, I thought was fucking brilliant. It's part of why I love the show so much. But yeah, it doesn't quite stack up to the other great entries on my list because I'm more of a fiction guy. But I did love that non-linear storytelling aspect to it. So next, we'll get to my number 8, and that was Agatha All Along. So yeah, the most recent one, the 2024 winner, which I was, again, very shocked at how good the show was. I was not expecting this show to be as good as it was. It was, yeah, had a lot of hooks, a lot of mysteries. I was, especially once we got to the halfway point of the season, I was completely hooked. And I thought that the resolution to it, the ending, was so powerful. Like, it had me in tears. It was very poignant, and there was a lot of good, shocking reveals that I thought was brilliant storytelling. It had characters that all the characters were really dynamic and great, and it had each episode was different, and they had like a great time travel episode. They had a great emotional, dramatic episode. It was great. It was absolutely amazing. Now, number 8. Again, this is in a list of all great stuff, so it had stiff competition. But yeah, it's the first half maybe wasn't the best in the world, and it did kind of have that hocus pocus kind of witchy feeling to it, which isn't usually my jam. But yeah, I mean, they're minor complaints because overall, loved this season. So next we get to my number 7, which is Game of Thrones season 6, which unfortunately does suffer from the fact that season 7 and 8 were so terrible. And I heard some people, I met someone recently, we were talking about how Game of Thrones sucked, and he thought it got bad after season 4, and he was very adamant about that, and I could disagree. I think you can kind of see the cracks in season 6. They did. I think of the Arya storyline where she got stabbed a bunch of times and then took a swimming in dirty water and then was perfectly fine afterwards. What? And the whole thing with the Hound returning is kind of boring, and yeah, I don't know. It's just this season wasn't quite as good as previous seasons, but some storylines really, really worked, like the Daenerys storyline, the Jon Snow storyline. The last 2 episodes of the season were pure gold, were amazing, especially that whole sequence with Cersei, blowing shit up. That was fucking amazing. That was like one of the best sort of sequences that the whole show ever did. So season 6 still stands out as a really strong season. It is hurt by the fact that it is set up for a terrible ending, but still great entry on the list. So next we get into number 6 on my list, which is Westworld Season 3. And no, Westworld Seasons 1 and 2 were nowhere near being my number 1. In fact, I think Season 1 of Westworld is like number 8 of the year it came out, because that is one of the most overrated seasons of all time. Whereas Westworld Season 3, one of my favorite seasons of television of all time, and one of the most underrated because people unrightfully put this season down and said it's the jumping the shark season of Westworld, where it's actually the growing the beard season of Westworld, where it got really good because it ditched that dumbass Western feel genre and instead ditched it for a much better genre of cyberpunk, and it did such an amazing job. It had freaking Aaron Paul putting in an amazing performance, and they made it had very poignant commentary about destiny and control and versus free will. Does free will actually exist? And it was very dynamic, and the different twists and turns the characters went through, and plus the freaking like musical choices and editing and production value were fucking amazing. So yeah, loved Westworld Season 3. So next, getting into my top 5 of the best, and that is Maniac. That was my 2018 entrance. I think this miniseries is very underrated because I never hear it talked about. I never really hear it, other than the year it came out, it was promoted a bit, but other than that, I never really, it's kind of like people forgot about it and just went to the ether, which I think is unfair, because I think this is definitely one of the best things that Netflix put out. It is a shame that BoJack Horseman never won any of my top 10s, because I think I deserve to talk about that, because that's another one of Netflix's best decisions, and Black Mirror, for that matter, never won either, because I wasn't doing this list when the earlier seasons came out, but still. But Maniac, amazing acting. Emma Stone and Jonah Hill give, my opinion, the best performances of their careers, and it is very tongue-in-cheek is the term I'm looking for, and usually that's not really my thing, but it works here for me. It's very absurdist, but it works because it does it in a very mind-bendy, mind-twisty, bending reality kind of way, which is my favorite thing. That's my favorite genre. I love when things play with reality and do like mind-bendy, mind-twisty stuff, and plus they explore like the psychology a lot, and I love it when movies like explore psychology in a mind-bendy, twisty way, like my favorite movie of all time, 12 Monkeys, did. So, and it has what's his face from The Leftovers is in this as well. What's his name? Justin. Is it? I don't want to say Trudeau, but that's the Prime Minister of Canada. I can't remember. Someone will tell me. But no, that's so. Yeah, everything about it was, and it had like the last couple episodes like hit me so hard. It was so good. And I know this is a silly thing to say, but the trailer was one of the best trailers I've ever seen for anything ever. So anyway, then we'll get to my number 4. Making it all the way up to my number 4, Loki Season 2. And anyone who says Season 1 was better than Season 2 is not someone I would agree with. Put it that way. I think Season 2, as much as I love Season 1, I think Season 2 was the superior season. again, it's where it got into the sort of mind-bending, mind-twisty stuff. And every single episode was like hard-hitting, like had amazing music and editing and just the whole production value. But more of the story, again, getting to this, time indie thing. And I fucking loved the finale. I thought the finale was revolutionary. It did this, Groundhog's Day type spin, but it did it in such an original way. And the character of Loki went through an amazing journey that was so well earned. So well earned. So yeah, absolutely love this season. It's my number 4. So next, we'll get into my number 3. Which is The Leftovers Season 2. Yes, one of the ones that was my number 2 that got elevated, which I think, again, far superior to Game of Thrones Season 5. I was just too much into Game of Thrones that year. But no, Leftovers Season 2, I do think, is one of the best seasons of all time. Yes, it does have that one episode with the priest trying to get back into the town, which is one of the biggest pretentious pieces of crap I've ever seen. But even that one episode was not enough to hurt how amazing the season was. It did have some, Damon Lindelof winkery in it, but yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. It's much better in season 1, which is more sort of, it was too, season 1, I love it, but it was too like just dark. It was too like sort of dreary, I think the word I'm looking for. Where this, it still had those strong, powerful, deep dives into depression or into emptiness or sadness, but it did it in a much more dynamic way that had highs and lows. And it had the episode where spoilers, where he died and went to the afterlife, which was like fucking extraordinary. And what they did after that was, amazing. This whole season was just a masterpiece. So, next we'll get into my number 2, which is another show that was a number 2 that got elevated to number 1, but this time it's because very stiff competition, and that is Better Call Saul, Season 6. It is the best season of Better Call Saul, in this person's humble opinion. Better Call Saul was always an amazing show. Every year, the season would make it to my top 5, but it was usually hung around like 4 or 3. This year, I really wanted to get it to number 1, but it was just this close runner-up. But, so Better Call Saul has always had a very slow pace. It's very character-based. And sometimes, a lot of the seasons, even though I love them, will have a lot of filler. Particularly like Season 2 and 3. I still say those seasons should have been combined into one season. They had some filler in the middle. But this season was a longer season. It's like a double season. It had 2 halves. And funnily enough, no filler for a longer season, and it's where everything hit. It's what the whole show has been building to. It's what we've been waiting for. We wanted to see that prequel to Breaking Bad, and how did it set up? And spoilers again, it actually surpasses Breaking Bad towards the end of the show and shows us what happened afterwards. As far as what's concerned with Saul Goodman. And I love that journey. It was absolutely amazing. The mid-season finale, I think, to me, that was the highlight of the... I think it was the mid-season premiere, I would say. The episode they showed after the break was the best episode of the show, and one of the best episodes ever. It was just so hard-hitting, so emotional. The drama was so good. The acting is so good. Every single actor got robbed and snubbed from awards, but Emmys are bullshit anyway. They just do what's popular, not what deserved, because if it was the case, then freaking what's her face who plays Kim She should have gotten an award. Fucking dude who plays Saul again. I'm just blanking on names. He should have gotten an award. They all should have gotten awards. It was like some of the best acting that I've ever seen ever, and it's just really hard hitting, amazing, powerful season. And I love, even though I don't say it's one of the best episodes of all time, I still love the series finale. It is one of the best series finales of all time, to be fair. Like right up there. It seems like all my favorite series finales are either Star Trek or Breaking Bad related. Or then The Expanse as well. But, like, yeah, it's right up there as one of the best series finales of all time because it was so poetic and just such a great character journey. An amazing season. That's why it's my number 2. So, next, we will get to my number 1 favorite season of all the winners of my favorite shows of the past 10 years, and surprise, surprise, what a shocker, it's The Expanse. Of course it's The Expanse. The Expanse Season 2, absolutely an amazing show, and if you have not seen this, you must watch this show. It's so good. And Season 2 in particular, again, it was a close tie between this and Season 6. Season 6 would probably be my number 2 if I included both of them, to be fair. But this, yeah, an amazing season. It has what is my favorite episode of all time in this season, a little episode called Home, which I thought was fucking amazing. It brings me like streaming to tears, not just a few tears, but streaming with tears every single time I watch. It's like touching. It's the whole music is amazing, and everything they did to build the characters up to that. It was such a satisfying and powerful character conclusion to a particular character. And in the rest of the season, we get this amazing story with Bobby Draper, and they have some great moments with her and also with Pratt over in Ganymede. Absolutely some amazing moments, like some of the best writing. Just definitely the best sci-fi show. And maybe the best show, period. But this is absolutely its crowning achievement, Season 2 of The Expanse. So, that is it for my top 10 winners of my top 10 shows of the year. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out my channel, as at the moment I'm mainly just doing Star Trek. So if you're a huge Star Trek fan, you can check that out. You can, if you're interested, you can actually go back and watch my top 10s of each top 10 shows of the year for each of the previous years, if you're curious what other shows I had in there. And if you're a big fan of The Expanse like I am, maybe check out some of my old videos on The Expanse, that kind of thing. But if newer videos is mainly just Star Trek stuff, but if you're into Star Trek, absolutely check it out. I'm covering every single episode of Star Trek, one episode at a time, just about to start Season 3 of Deep Space Nine. In a couple months, we'll be starting Season 1 of Voyager, so that's where I'm at the moment. So, be sure to check out my channel for that. Leave a like, subscribe, helps the channel out a lot. And thanks so much for watching.